is just fantastic. Captain's Log, subdate 210216.1. I might have to stage a coup over the UK's laughable criminal justice system. I am not a fan of what must be and should be quite clear lifers getting a last chance. Welcome everyone to the Halls of Injustice. Today we have a rather interesting case. Inmate. We're going to call them inmates number 060. However, this is an unusual case because they're not on the way in. No. And I think as we go through this particular story, it will become very much apparent just how little I care for the UK criminal justice system at present. Buckle yourselves in. The story I'm about to tell is going to make you quite angry. Consider this a trigger warning. It does involve children. For this story we need 3 people. Mairead Philpott, formerly Duffy, born in Ireland to travellers. Mick Philpott, who we'll talk about in a moment, and a family friend, Paul Mosley. Mairead Philpott has a bit of a thing for certain types of men. She likes the ones that hit her back. We know this because of her first relationship with her, and then Mick being the second, who she married at the age of 19 in 2003. She had a number of children with Mick Philpott. Mick Philpott, oh boy, he's something quite unique to himself. He is, I guess you could say, a product of a system where a cozy life was guaranteed and all he had to do was fake an injury or be mildly inconvenienced and he could live his whole life cozily on state welfare. The problem here is, while he appeared on television bragging about how good a father he was, it was later discovered he was anything but. That being confirmed by Mairead's family when they took one of the children out to dinner and they ate faster than you could blink, almost as if they'd never been fed. Turns out they hadn't, for a week. Beyond school meals, that is, which had to last. But we're going to go back a little with Mick Philpott. He has his own wiki page. Mairead does not, we'll get to that later. In 1978, at the age of 21, so yes, he's a lot older than Mairead Philpott, a lot older. He attempted to murder his girlfriend of 2 years. Their relationship had begun when she was 15. He at the time would have been 19. Now he had shot, previously, that same girlfriend in the groin with a crossbow, because he felt her dress had been too short. It was, after all, the 70s. We can't be showing ankle. He cracked her kneecap with a hammer when she paid too much attention to a baby that she had been looking after, and he had stabbed her over 12 times while she was in bed, because she sent him a letter saying she was leaving him. I can't imagine why. Now he was in fact convicted of attempted murder and GBH, and was sentenced to 7 years, of which he served 3 years and 2 months. Don't even get me started on that. He did marry in 1986. He had 3 children with this person, later confirmed by this lady to be a control freak. She was saved when Philpott took interest in a 14-year-old, who then ran away with him at the age of 16. She also, by the way, had 2 children with him, but Philpott, being himself, beat her too, because he wanted a daughter. Skip ahead in time from 1990 to 2000, where he met Mairead Duffy, a single mother born to an Irish family who had previously left a volatile relationship. Not long after, they got married, 3 years later I might add. In 2001, Philpott met Lisa Willis, a 16-year-old orphan and single mother who became, on top of Mairead Philpott being his wife, his mistress. It is worth noting, the woman he had, or the teenager he had 2 sons with, managed to obtain legal custody of her 2 children. I just wanted to throw that in there. That happened just before Philpott married Mairead Duffy. As you can clearly see, he has a type. He has a taste for younger blood. It is not a good taste because he likes to control them. He likes to dominate them. He dictates what they do when they do it. Like a prison warden. You don't go to the bathroom unless I grant you permission to do so. For Mairead Duffy's family, he put on a show. but he did also keep the grandchildren away from them so they could only see the grandchildren when he was taking some of them to school. And in before I forget the rather unusual relationship of having a wife and a mistress, the mistress was the bridesmaid at their wedding, and at one point both were pregnant at exactly the same time. How incredibly exciting. You might have noticed I haven't talked about the person who's on the title of the video that much. There isn't much to say, really. During this relationship, there are many claims that came up more recently that did not come up during the trial. And they do paint a light, yes, but they don't change what actually happened. In fact, what has happened recently, the original crime isn't being contested, or was not contested, but the sentence. Shall we get to that now? On the 11th of May 2012, the home of the Philpotts at 18 Victory Road, Osmaston, Derby, was ablaze. In the house at the time were 6 children, 5 of whom were asleep upstairs, and all did in fact pass away at the scene. Half-brother Duane, aged 13, passed away in hospital 2 days later. All were attributed to excessive smoke inhalation. The public were on the side of the Philpotts when this happened. They were on their side because it didn't take long for the police to confirm this was arson when they found fuel, gasoline, petrol in the letterbox. They did a very public statement with the police. They appeared on television, in fact, which wasn't the first time Mick Philpott had been on television. I'll link a Jeremy Kyle thing, it is quite bad, but it was before this. There were very large gatherings, there were flowers, the people, the support of the community was on the side of the Philpotts. Now there was a fair amount of criticism, but of course, for the sake of optics, it was irrelevant. The criticism was levied at the fact that they were benefit scroungers. They always had been, and they will more than likely always will be, eventually. They were a product of a system. There was a debate between Anne Widdecombe and Owen Jones about this, in fact. They debated about whether or not the deaths of the children were to be attributed, blame-wise, not just to those who committed the crime, but also to the governments who enabled this kind of lifestyle. Now, I don't tend to care for that, but I can certainly empathise with the mentality that goes behind it, and there is a point to it. Owen Jones understandably took the side of, you shouldn't be showing children to make a political point, and Widdecombe shut him down. There is some merit to both sides of an argument on this. My view is, 6 people died. I'll be honest, if I'm going to blame anyone, it's going to be the people responsible. 14 days had passed between the police announcing that this was in fact a murder investigation, and the police had grown a little suspicious. They grew suspicious because Mick Philpott is not the smartest man. If it wasn't obvious enough, he's smart in one very key area, and that is how to control young, vulnerable women, the same kind he has had up to 15 children with. Beyond that, he is remarkably dumb, and the police noticed something about him. Now, I can tell you with hand on both of my hearts, grief is incredibly painful. If any of you have gone through it, you know what it feels like to lose someone close to you. Mick Philpott, though, is a bit different. You see, Mick Philpott was enjoying the media attention. He was lavishing it. He was savouring it. And this got the police a tad annoyed. So they did something. Something clever, by the way. They bugged the hotel they were using. That audio clip, by the way, is on YouTube, and I can't translate it. I don't speak Mick Philpott, but I'll play a clip for you now.
What did you say? Tell me what you said to him then. What did you say about how many times I went up ladders?
I almost can't how many times I went up the ladders.
What did you say about me trying to get in?
You tried everything you could to get in. Like I said to him, I wanted to run through the flames up the stairs.
What did you cry when you were saying it? How bad?
Not really, really bad, but I did cry.
That's hysterical.
On the 28th of May 2012, Philpott and Mairead were arrested on suspicion of murder. After seeking additional time for questioning, they were charged with it on the 30th of May. They had found near the house a discarded petrol container and a glove. Forensic investigators discovered that the clothes of the Philpotts and of Paul Mosley had petrol on them. So on November the 5th, Paul Mosley was arrested and charged with murder. These charges were later downgraded to manslaughter. The reason, if you're curious as to why the charges were reduced, is because they hadn't intended to kill the children. Instead, they wanted to frame Willis for the fire and win back custody of the children and continue to claim benefits for them. Who is Willis, you ask? Willis was the bridesmaid and mistress to Mick Philpott, who had a few days earlier been doing legal custody battles with Mick Philpott. She was arrested and questioned, along with her brother-in-law, but released without charge. She was innocent. So eventually this all went to trial, and all three were found guilty. Mick Philpott, Mairead Philpott, Paul Mosley, guilty. It didn't take long, by the way, but the judge did take a little longer with assessing the sentences, and eventually came up with 3. Paul Mosley, who we've barely spoken about, by the way, because there is very little information on him, was sentenced to 17 years and will have to serve half of that in prison. Mick Philpott, life, out in 15 years. And Mairead Philpott, 17 years with a minimum of half served in prison. So why are we talking about this in 2021? Well, just before Christmas, so I do apologise for not getting to this sooner, Mairead Philpott was freed after serving less than half of her sentence. Why? Because she appealed the sentence on the grounds that she was as much a victim as her children, diminished responsibility, and the courts bought it. Her family, when this all went to trial, by the way, didn't believe any of this. They genuinely didn't believe she was capable of it. Once she was convicted, they disowned her. She is very much alone now. As an added bonus, she is currently spending time in an all-women's hostel, which for her consists of a £600 a week taxpayer-funded home until she is fit to leave. It's a halfway house, paid for by the taxpayer, and she is cushy, looked after, until the rest of her sentence is served. I'm not a fan of this. I'm not a fan of any of this. So here are the updated sentences from me.
A few moments later.
Yes, you're going in that cell. Get in there now. Mick Philpott, life without the possibility of parole. Seriously. We are going to do you a solid, though. We're going to have smoke in your cell. Just forever. Paul Mosley, life without parole. Do you see a theme here? Mairead Philpott, life without parole. Oh, and for the sake of it, you're all getting castrated. I am not risking any of you procreating. You are all too stupid. The remainder of those children that are alive that weren't there, I hope they are safe and hope they live good, long, healthy lives. But I have heard one of your children called Mickey Philpott does still kind of look up to his dad. Well, I hope that changes or has changed since then. As we're done here, I want to know what you think. The story is not the nicest. I do apologise for that. So please do let me know in the comments down below. I hope you'll have a fantastic day, and thank you all very much for listening.